cheer and boo and raise a hullabaloo at the ball game today. At the ball game, a wonderful ball game today.
Wow. Wow. Guess what? We know baseball. We're here. We're back. We're live. We Know Baseball, the baseball only show, part of the We Know Ball media collection, media group. My name is Ryan, at Ryan Knows Ball. That's my handle on Twitter. At We Know Ball Sports, Instagram and TikTok. Check us out on YouTube. The listeners on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Could not appreciate you guys anymore. We've got an absolutely phenomenal episode for you guys today as we sit here early Monday morning, April 29th, 2024. Pretty much a full month of baseball completed, right? Pretty much a full month. We were hoping to get this show more regular. Thing called life got in the way. And as it turns out, we've had a very brief hiatus, but we are here and we are back on episode 52. Wanted to do something special as we get back into these episodes and wanted to take a look at, as we go through these numbers here, we're kind of past some of those lower digit numbers that probably have some more prominent figures, but see what we could do here with these current numbers we have. And what I mean is, this is episode 52. Speaking of 52, who are some prominent MLB players that wore number 52 before we get into the regular routine of the episode? And as I look at it here, some players that did wear number 52 for even just 1 year. Some guys wore it for longer years. And again, take this how you may, but you've got Roy Halladay at the top of the WAR leaderboard in baseball history amongst players who wore number 52. Roy Halladay wore 52 for one season on the Toronto Blue Jays in 1998, accumulated 64 WAR for his career. So the most valuable player to ever wear 52 at any point, according to Baseball Reference, is Roy Halladay. However, second on the list with second most accumulated WAR to wear the number 52 is CC Sabathia. CC Sabathia accumulated 62.3 WAR over his extensive career, but he wore number 52 for 19 seasons. So he wore it every year. So who do you give it to? Do you give the number 52 crown in baseball history to Roy Halladay, who only wore it for 1 year but had more WAR? Or do you give it to CC, who wore it for his whole career and accumulated just about the same amount of WAR as Roy Halladay, but wore it for 19 seasons? I think I give it to CC. Regardless, both dudes are absolute legends. Some other notables that wore number 52 with some serious WAR accumulation. Third on the list, wore it for one season in 99 with the Oakland A's. Tim Hudson wore number 52 briefly, one season in Oakland. Moises Alou wore it for 1 year in Pittsburgh in 1990. Some other notables and names here, and I'm going to go years real quick. Nah, we're going to go back to WAR. Randy Wolf, Carlos Ruiz, Yoenis Cespedes wore it for 8 years. Cespedes, hey, I mean, what a guy, huh? Mike Clevenger apparently wears 52 and continues to wear 52. Jim Abbott wore it for a couple years on the California Angels. Sean Casey, Freddie Sanchez, Joey Wendell, Sean Manaea, Michael Fulmer. I know these guys. Jordan Montgomery. So there you go. Number 52, episode 52. How is everybody doing? We got a great episode today. Going to be doing our standard, going over the standings, taking it from American League first, going east to west, talk about the notable stats and storylines along the way, where these teams stand, how they got to where they are. And then we're going to do our stats portion of the show and talk about some other stuff that's notable to baseball, like the absolutely treacherous jersey fiasco situation, whatever you want to call it. MLB's been addressing that, and ultimately we kind of have a solution, I guess, for the time being. It's complicated. We'll get into it, but the MLB jersey fiasco and situation that you guys have heard me just go off about on this show, on other shows, and It's been addressed. Well, we'll get into it. Regardless, we're going to go standings first. Okay. And as we do go to the standings, as I mentioned, we go American League first and we go east to west. So American League East, American League Central, American League West. Talk about the stats and storylines that are notable as we go through the standings. And when we do that, as we sit here, April 29th, 2024, in the American League East, to nobody's surprise, the top of that division features the New York Yankees, 19-10, off to a very good start. Very good start for the New York Yankees, especially a month into the season. 29 games under their belt. 19-10, I think Yankees fans would be ecstatic to see that. And I think, if I'm being honest, I'm surprised. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way for the New York Yankees. I'm shocked that the Yankees started the year 19-10 because the Yankees came out with the immediate bad news possibility, like close to worst case scenario, losing Garrett Cole for an extended period of time. And I think for a lot of teams, a lot of organizations, a lot of collective groups, it's no disrespect to everyone else, it's hard to bounce back from that. Right? That's why I'm shocked that the Yankees are 19-10 through a month in the season. When you find out your ace, reigning Cy Young Award winner, is going to be out for a lengthy period of time, most teams, right? Let's be honest, most teams would have just sucked down into the deep depths of poor me, bad body language, season's over, all the different superlatives that teams could have been described as, like, you know, lacking energy, boring, whatever, right? The Yankees find out Garrett Cole is out for a long period of time. And then they come out in the first month and they go 19-10 with a rotation that features Nestor and Clark Schmidt and Luis Heel and Stroman. Like, those are all good pitchers. But when you lose Garrett Cole, most teams would have spiraled, honestly, or at least just not been 19-10. A lot of teams would have just potentially floated around 500, you know, lost a couple close games, didn't come out with a ton of energy. Definitely, a lot of teams wouldn't have come out to start the season with a 4-game set in Houston and swept the Astros after finding out their ace pitcher is going to be out for a while. Yankees did. I think that 4-game series in Houston to start the season for the Yankees showed everybody, including that team and that clubhouse, we can win. Not only can we can win a lot, and we can win consistently. We don't need Garrett Cole. That's no disrespect. Garrett Cole is the reigning Cy Young Award winner, best pitcher in the American League, probably. But we can win without him. And then when we do, and we continue to play our tail off, and he comes back, oh boy, right? Oh boy. And for the Yankees, now they're in such a good spot because you're starting to hear some rumblings, right? Starting to hear, here comes DJ LeMahieu, right? He's coming back. Tony Riz, he's playing a little ball. Judge is starting to swing a little bit. Soto's always going to be there. Garrett Cole's playing catch. Uh-oh. Rodon's starting to throw better. Stroman's been good. All of a sudden, are the Yankees the best team in the American League? I think that's yet to be determined, but we'll talk about depth. I want to talk about good morale. I want to talk about teams. Yeah, you know what? They lost the series or split with the Oakland A's. So what? Right? That team, the New York Yankees this year, doesn't strike me as a team that's going to take that series split with the Oakland A's and let that affect them for the next week. They're just not. I think Aaron Boone's an excellent leader. He does it the right way. I think the Yankees are getting contributions from guys they maybe didn't expect, at least to contribute at a high level. And that's what it takes to win at a sustainable level, to come out 19-10 in the first month of the season without Garrett Cole. Hats off to the Yankees, man. Seriously, hats off. And right underneath them in the American League East is the Baltimore Orioles, 17-10. So they're a game back technically standings wise. They're 2 games back in the win column, but they got the same number of losses. So Yankees have played 2 more games than the Baltimore Orioles. 17-10 for the Orioles, right about where we expected them to be. Right about where they, 17-10. They also struggled with the Oakland A's. The A's this year, it doesn't seem like, at least in terms of their bullpen, are going to be like the laughing stock of the league. They're not going to be good, right? They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to finish above 500, but 71 and 91 is a lot better than 55 and 107, right? Like they might sniff 70 wins. So when that happens, like they're going to go to the East Coast on a road trip, play the Yankees, play the Orioles for 7 games and win 2 or 3 of those games or more. That's what they did. But just speaking on the AL East as we go through, we won't skip ahead. Orioles 17-10. What's crazy to me about the Orioles is that they can call up Jackson Holliday, the number 1 prospect who comes up. Not sure the whole detailed situation of that call up and why they called him up, why he struggled, but it was clear that something wasn't working. And all signs indicate they're going to send him back down and he'll be fine, right? But what's crazy to me about the Orioles is that they can call up the number 1 overall prospect, have him play for a week straight. Clearly he struggled. Something wasn't working. Could have been the pressure. Could have been a ton of different intangibles contributing to horrendous 2-week debut for Jackson Holliday. They just send him back down. Next guy up. And it's no disrespect. Jackson Holliday is a great player. He will be up again this year. There's no question about it. Was he rushed a little bit? Yeah, maybe. Did he get thrown into a situation where he faced a ton of really good arms as soon as he came up to the big leagues? Yes, that's also true. But they send him down. Oh, hey, don't worry about it. We're also going to call up Keston Herstad, and we have Colton Cowser, and Adley Rutschman, and Gunnar Henderson, and Cedric's playing well, and Mountcastle's always going to be there. By the way, we traded for Corbin Burns. Grayson Rodriguez is in our rotation too. These dudes are bananas. They're nuts. They're crazy. Oh, ever heard of Jordan Westberg? Cool. Well, you should, because he might make the All-Star team this year. Like, it just doesn't stop with the Orioles, and it's crazy. It's hard to comprehend. And good for the Orioles and good for their fans, by the way, because A, the Orioles organization did it the right way. B, their fans have had to sit through some brutal seasons, absolutely brutal seasons for a team and a franchise that's so embedded in the history of Major League Baseball, with a beautiful stadium, tons of postseason experience and success long time ago in a division that's been predominantly dominated by the Yankees and Red Sox. Even the Blue Jays have had some success. Meanwhile, by the way, the Rays sit in that division. They always make the playoffs randomly. So the Orioles have been at the bottom of the barrel in that division for the longest time. And drafted and developed so good, so much better. I mean, like, the Orioles draft and development situation that they have going on in the organization needs to be studied, because it is feeding families in Baltimore. And now they're in a situation where they have the luxury to call up the number 1 prospect in Jackson Holliday, probably rush him a little bit too much. Not sure what happened. A bunch of different intangibles hit him, one factor or another, pressure, everything. Number 1 prospect comes up and doesn't play well. Just send him back down. Let him get some more ABs. Let him get his confidence back up. Call him up again. And in the meantime, we will have 9 first-round picks on our roster contributing at a high level on a regular basis. Superstar level, all-star caliber players. Top 5 at their position. We drafted them. We developed them. We did it the right way. Now the Orioles are reaping the benefits of that incredible development program they have going on in their minor league system. Here we are. Will Jackson Holliday be okay? Of course. He's the number 1 prospect for a reason. But what's crazier about that is that he came up, didn't play well. It is what it is. He'll be fine. And the Orioles were like, we'll send him down. Send him to AAA. He was just there, having success, build up his confidence a little bit. In the meantime, Jackson, while you're getting your ABs again and building up that confidence, we'll be up here in the big leagues with 8 first-round picks in our regular lineup, contributing every single day at a high level. It's unbelievable. And there's no other organization doing it like the Baltimore Orioles. Good for them. Good for their fans. They deserve it. They've earned it. They did it the right way. The fans sat through some brutal years. And here we are, the Orioles reaping the benefits of exactly how you should do it if you're a team like that. Draft the right guys, develop them to be good players, Call him up to the major leagues at the right time. Let him get regular at-bats and then bring in complementary pieces around him like Jack Flaherty last year, like Corbin Burns this year. Hopefully they add a little bit more. Maybe they're aggressive at the deadline, and then you make it a run to World Series. Seriously, they could do that. Good for the Orioles. Up next in that division is Boston Red Sox, okay? Red Sox 16-13. Are they overplaying their possibilities? I think so. But when you've got starting pitching that is pitching out of its mind, you got a guy like Cutter Crawford who at the moment might be, statistically speaking, the best pitcher in the American League based on starting pitching, ERA, and stuff like that. He pitched over the weekend against the Cubs, faced off against Shoto Imanaga. Excuse me. As I sip my coffee over here, Boston Red Sox 16-13. Briefly touching on the ERA, I mentioned the Cutter Crawford situation. So yeah, he sits right now. He sits in all of baseball at number 3 amongst qualified starters with a 1.35 ERA. He's got 6 starts. He's only 1-1, but he's got 33 innings. He's got 34 punch-outs, 11 walks, but a 1.1 whip and a 1.35 ERA. When you've got guys like that, oh, by the way, who else is in the qualified? Who else has been pitching well for the Red Sox? How about Tanner? I don't know, man. Is it Houck? Is it Huck? I think it's Huck. Could be Houck. Regardless, Tanner, Houck, Huck, whatever you want to call him. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I really don't know how to pronounce his name. Houck. I think it's, you know what? Why don't we just do this? How to pronounce Tanner Houck. 1 year ago. Let's see. This is a YouTube video that has an ad running, but it's Houck. And I don't mean to spend too much time on this or dive on this, but it is important because I do think we need to know how to pronounce these guys, because I'll tell you why shortly here in a second. Let's see what this
Speechmodification.com presents letters OU in Houck. Have a word or
see. This is just unreal. It's just unbelievable. Let's see.
This Red Sox pitcher is making an early case for comeback player of the year. Meet Tanner Houck, the 27-year-old right.
All right, this guy says Houck, so I'm going to go Houck. All right. Anyways, Tanner Houck, I looked through the starting pitching ERA situation. Number 3 in the league with qualified starters in ERAs, Cutter Crawford. We talked about that. 1.35. Number 5 is Tanner Houck. 3-2 in 6 starts with a 1.6 ERA. If you've got 2 of the top 5 guys in ERA in your rotation, you're gonna be pretty decent, right? You're gonna be at or above 500, no matter how bad. Not that the Red Sox are horrendous, but no matter how good or bad your team is, you're gonna be hovering just at or above 500 if you've got 2 qualified starters in the top 5 in ERA, right? So the Red Sox at 16-13, they have pitched the lights out of this joint. The lights out of this joint. Plus 33 run differential. 3 games back. Starting a series here against San Francisco. Curious to see how that goes. But for the Red Sox, a good start. I think a lot better of a start than most people anticipated and most people predicted, including myself. Underneath them is the Blue Jays at 14-15. Blue Jays this year so far have just kind of been the same as last year, maybe a little bit worse. It's kind of got the vibes that the San Diego Padres have right now, had last year, Mets of last year, Cardinals of last year, Astros of this year. Not as bad maybe as the Astros. Cardinals again of this year, where they're not a bad team. The Blue Jays have talent. Vlad, Bo, George Springer, Barrios, Yusei Kikuchi. Like, they've got dudes. But they don't seem to consistently put it together, rack together 4 or 5 wins in a row. Again, I know it's early. I know they've only played 29 games. Everyone says that though. And then when push comes to shove, the Blue Jays are what they are, which is kind of lackadaisical, kind of boring, high, the guys in the middle of their order that they're expecting to carry them aren't really doing that. The complementary pieces around them in the lineup also kind of underperforming. They have Justin Turner, who's been okay for them so far this year. Starting pitching's been pretty good, and the offense just hasn't been there. It just hasn't been there, right? For the Blue Jays, if you go team stats here and you go to offensive team stats, and you had to take a guess where the Toronto Blue Jays were in terms of team OPS in all of baseball, with, again, Justin Turner, Vlad Jr., Bo Bichette, George Springer, like that's at least a middle of the pack team OPS type group, right? 14th, 10th. How about 24th in the league in team OPS for the Blue Jays? 669 as a group? Wasn't Alejandro Kirk an all-star 2 years ago, right? Like Santiago Espinal or Kevin Biggio, like where's Dalton Varsho been? Why is he not very good? I mean, they're banking on, at this point, contributions from guys like Ernie Clement and Davis Schneider, who honestly have been some of their better producers. The Blue Jays need their big boys to turn it on a little bit. Because if they don't turn it on, the guys that are in the middle of the order that they expect to drive runs in and be their best hitters, if those guys don't contribute, you're not going to win games with the supplemental pieces around 3, 4, 5, 6 in your lineup. You're not going to win games if your leadoff hitter and your 8 and 9 hitters are your best guys. You're just not. Doesn't matter how good you pitch. So we'll see what happens with the Blue Jays 14 and 15. Tampa Bay Rays last in that division, 13 and 16. Will they bounce out of this? Will they be better? Probably, right? Probably. But we'll see. The Rays, I heard John Boy guys talking about that after they played the Yankees, but the Rays are just kind of, it's similar to how they've always been, where it's just like an assembled group of players that were put together in an Excel spreadsheet. You know what I mean? Like statistically and value wise, oh, this guy's, pretty affordable, but he's pretty decent and productive enough. And they don't really gel as a team. It doesn't really seem like they have a ton of like chemistry guys or clubhouse guys. It's kind of just like, here's the group, here's the lineup, go throw them out there, go play in a kind of shitty stadium and see what happens. And that's what it is. They're 13 and 16. But that's the AL East. Moving on to the AL Central. So AL East again, Yankees, Orioles, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Rays. That's the standings. AL Central. All right, we're going to spend some time talking about this division because it's shocking. I mean, it is as shocking, I think, in this division as any other division anywhere else. In first place, maybe not going to shock people with the team, right? The Cleveland Guardians. Guardians in first place. Some people could say, all right, I can see that. How about 19 and 9 for the Cleveland Guardians? Talked about it, I think, on our last episode, right? They were up at the top of the division. You said, oh, well, they started the season with 4 against the Oakland A's. Oh, they did. No, the Guardians are good. They're scoring a lot. They're pitching well. They have a plus 46 run differential, and their expected win-loss is exactly what it is. They're 19 and 9. 7 and 3 in their last 10. And that's another team, new manager, Stephen Vogt, totally understand, but more so like you lose Shane Bieber, you could go one of two ways. It's either, all right, let's prove we can do it without him, or let's spiral down the toilet and kiss this season goodbye. And they chose option 1. And the Cleveland Guardians, maybe it's inflated, maybe they got hot for a month. We will see. But I think the Guardians are a team and continue to be a team that was assembled before the pitch clock and now during the pitch clock in this era and this time of baseball with increased velo, pitching is much harder to hit, where they built their team based on contact-oriented, team-oriented, ball-in-play type players, ball-in-play type of at-bats with quality pitching, just good enough to kind of get by, good back end of the pen. Then you get a guy or two in the middle of that order that starts to pop a little bit. You're always going to have Jose Ramirez. Now they got Josh Naylor. Next thing you know, the Guardians are 19-9 with the best record in the American League. Is it sustainable? Will it continue for the rest of the year? I don't know. I would have told you 2 weeks ago when they were off to an amazing start. Would it continue? Is it sustainable? I don't think so. But I'm not going to say that now because I've been humbled. Most people have been humbled by the fact that the Guardians apparently are nasty. Good for them. And right underneath them, by the way, Kansas City Royals, 17-12. Right underneath them, the Tigers, 16-12. Is the AL Central nasty? Is it? Is it gross? I had the Royals improving this year. I also had the Tigers improving. Didn't have either of them finishing above 500, I believe. But the Royals are gross. Royals are getting crazy contribution. Bobby Witt Jr. just, by the way, talk about this real quick. Kansas City Royals off to a hot start. That's great. I don't know how much longer we can go without talking about how Bobby Witt Jr., top 5 player in the game. I mean, don't call me crazy. Better than Ronald Acuna? Hey, the guy plays a premier position. Premier position. Doesn't maybe have as much dummy pop as Acuna. Bobby Witt's not going to rinse the ball out 470 dead center. But he's going to hit 30. I think the guy went 30-30 last year. Plays a premier position at a high level, by the way. Top 99th or 100 percentile in every category you'd like to see. Why don't we take a look at Bobby Witt Jr.'s Baseball Savant page? And why don't I just throw up? Run value, batting run value, 88th percentile. Oh, that's good. Base running run value, 99th percentile. Oh, that's pretty good. How about fielding run value, 93rd percentile? All of its expected stats are 96th or better percentile. Average exit velo, the best in the game. Barrel percentage, hard hit percentage. The only parts where he might struggle and has had any possibility of struggling is the swing and miss. But if you're going to be in the 95th or better percentile in everything else, defensively, arm strength, sprint speed, expected slugging, average exit velo, barrel percentage, hard hit hey, don't come for me. Don't come for me. Bobby Witt Jr., top 5 player in Major League Baseball right now. Don't come for me. Don't. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Are other guys better? Yeah, probably. You come to me and say, life on the line, you're starting your franchise expansion team in Major League Baseball, and you got to take one dude right now, all things considered, including current contract and how he is as a player. I'm taking Bobby Witt Jr. There's other better players. Mookie Betts, probably better. Shohei Ohtani, better. Yordan Alvarez, better hitter. Acuna, maybe better. Right? Bobby Witt Jr., 23. Signed for the next 12 years. 23, 12 years. So if I've got that guy locked up for 12 years, he's 23, he'll be 34. Just prime. They got 95th percentile or better in every single statistical category you would want a guy to be in at a premier position, a shortstop. He steals bags, has a rocket of an arm, hits the ball just as hard or harder than anybody else, slugs like crazy, gets on base like crazy. Could argue he's better than Ronald Acuna Jr. Could argue he's better than Mike Trout. Trout's hitting some homers this year, but Bobby's going to steal more bags. Bobby's going to play more valuable defense. Bobby plays a more valuable defense than Ronald Acuna already by a lot. That's why I think the Royals are 17-12. Not that, I mean, that's not the only reason. Salvi's playing really well this year. Their starting pitching's been really good. They picked up Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha. Both guys have been awesome for them. And 17-12 is really respectable. And when you got guys like Bobby Witt, talked about it with, the Blue Jays, how you got your reliable guys. You got you guys you're expecting to carry the team offensively or be better, be the producers, the primary guys. And when you get that with Kansas City, next thing you know, you're 17-12. They're pitching, they're playing defense. They got their guys contributing on offense. Here we are. Tigers 16-12, plus 3 run differential. That tells me a little bit, right? Because Royals are plus 43. Tigers are plus 3. Plus 3 run differential, 16-12. Okay. Strikes me as maybe getting a little lucky, but the Tigers bullpen, let me just tell you guys, the Tigers bullpen is disgusting. Jason Foley and Alex Lang at the back of that bullpen are going to be a two-headed monster. The Tigers, if they start to peter off a little bit, find themselves at the trade deadline, 5-10 games under 500, those two dudes, Lang and Foley, will get a massive haul at the trade deadline, right? And everybody's looking for big-time bullpen arms. Those are always the most sought after in a postseason stretch and the easiest to translate over and come over immediately to have success, right? Because you trade for hitters sometimes and you're like, he hasn't seen a lot of these guys. It's tough in this division and the postseason's a lot of pressure. Pitching's pitching, man. You go out and throw the same stuff. Clearly it's worked. So for the Tigers, they have an opportunity to either make a big splash with their on the field play or make a big splash at the deadline and start to build up even more. Like what the Tigers are doing. Not sure if that is as much sustainable as the rest, right? 10-4 on the road. Come on. I don't know about that. Twins are 14-13, playing okay. We'll see what happens. And then the White Sox are 6-22. Obviously, a complete joke. Mariners leading the American League West. Seattle Mariners at top. The American League West 15-13. Right behind them is the Rangers by a half game, 15-14. Both of those teams, and I think a big story of this division is just like who can win 90 games. And you weren't sure about that, and you wouldn't know entirely. That would have been a weird thing to say going into this year. But as it's shaping up so far, 15-13 for the Mariners, 15-14 for the Rangers. Those are the only two teams above 500 in this division. In third place, the Oakland A's, 12-17. Angels are 10-18, and the Astros are 9-19. Astros just got hit with the injury bug. Got hit with the pitching depleted, offensive production off to a slow start. All of a sudden, you're in a 10-foot hole, right? You can dig yourself out of it if you really work hard, but 9-19 to start off the first 28 games might be too tough to overcome. The Astros have some dudes. They've got postseason experience. They've got veteran leadership. They've got dogs. I mean, Jordan's top 10 hitter in the game, right? Altuve, probably top 15. Bregman, though, off to a slow start. Kyle Tucker's good. But who's been pitching for him, right? JP France. I mean, Ronel Blanco's been great, but it's been spot start here, bullpen converted arm there. It's just kind of been a really just underwhelming, low energy, lack of conviction type of performance from the Astros, right? You're so used to seeing the Astros the last 10 years, dude, going out. How'd they do in that 1-run game? They came out on top. Astros played a game against somebody. One side got blown out. Who was it? Not the Astros, right? The Astros won 7-1. Astros won 10-3. It's been the opposite this year. It's been like down early. Offense doesn't get out to a great start. It's 3-0, and final score, right? 7-3 opposing team. Like just a lot of that. And -22 in the run differential. It's not the worst, but it's not great, right? Their expected win-loss is 12-16, and they're 9-19. That shows me a little bit unlucky, right? A couple of blowout losses. So we'll see what happens. I think the Astros check back in 2 weeks, man. I mean, if we're not within 8, 7, 7 or 6 in the 500 area, right? Might be looking at a lost season for the Astros, but we'll see, right? We'll see what happens. Moving on to the National League, right? East to West. Starting in the NL East, not shocking anybody. Atlanta Braves, best record in baseball, 19-7. 19-7. What do you get when you combine a team that's got offensive depth 1 through 9, contributors everywhere in the lineup, couple of young arms contributing at a high level, losing your best starting pitcher and probably the best starting pitcher in that respective league, and taking, I should say this, losing your number one starter, who also happens to be the best starter in the league, facing two options. One, let's go down a spiral, flush the toilet, call it a season. Or two, prove we can win without him. What do you get when you combine all those factors? And you got two teams that chose option 2 and said, let's prove we can do it without the best guy and then hope they come back or just build it elsewhere. You get the Atlanta Braves and the New York Yankees. Two teams that literally came into the season or 2 weeks into the year, don't have their best starter, who is also the best in the league, and decide, you know what? We're not going to call this a lost year. We're going to battle. We're going to fight. We're going to drive guys in. We're going to have productive outs. We're going to get contributions 1 through 9, and we're going to have some young guys step up on the roster, specifically in the rotation, have a reliable enough bullpen, and come out of the first month of the season tops in our league. It's incredibly respectable. It's admirable, and it's really impressive to see that from both the Braves and the Yankees, right? Braves are 19-7. They don't have Spencer Strider, and they just keep winning, right? Oh, you lose Spencer Strider? How about 8-2 in your last 10? Huh? How about plus 47 run differential? Oh, that's the best in the National League. The Braves are crazy. The Braves are crazy. Talked about it last year. Spent a lot of time talking about it last year. Spent a lot of time addressing it. Acuna, Albies, Sean Murphy, Matt Olson, Orlando Arcia, Marcell Ozuna, Michael Harris. I mean, are they all going to make the All-Star team again? It's crazy. I mean, it's just crazy. Marcell Ozuna has been their best guy. But Matt Olson's great. Acuna's great. Acuna didn't even hit his first home run until 3 weeks into the season. And these dudes just don't lose. It's crazy. Second place in that division, Philadelphia Phillies, 19-10. 3-game sweep of the Padres over the weekend, 8-2 in their last 10, plus 25 run differential. Playing pretty well, getting some good pitching contributions. Ranger Suarez, dude. Holy cow, this guy's going to start the All-Star game. Seriously, Ranger Suarez might start the All-Star game in the National League. The dude's been unhittable. Unhittable. Right? Talk about statistical leaders. Take a look over here. Pitching leaders, not by team. Actually, I will look at the team here, though. See what the Phillies are at. So yes, Phillies are 7th in team ERA, but more specifically, Rangers number 2 in the league in ERA amongst qualified starters. And I know this doesn't hold as much weight anymore, but he's 5-0, right? And so it's 5-0 through 6 starts. He's going to have what? 14 starts by the All-Star break, maybe 15. What's the guy going to be? 10-0, 11-1. Like, he's been unbelievable, man. Crazy. Good for him. Good for the Phils, right? You got Nola already. You got Zach Wheeler already. Bullpen's been pretty good. Guys are starting to heat up a little bit on the offensive side of the ball. Bryce is coming around a little bit. Trey Turner's not off to such a slow start. Schwarber's hitting home runs. Now you're 19-10. Third place in the NL East, New York Mets. 14-13, kind of hovering, right? Better than last year, because last year at this point, you could kind of already tell Mets aren't going to do nothing this year. They got no veteran leadership. They're lazy, bad at bats, underperformance. This year, they've shown a lot more fight. A lot more fight. Their starting pitching has been okay. They're going to need some bumps. They're going to need some improvements, but the Mets are okay. They're an okay team. I think they're a 500 squad. I think they'll be hovering around there, maybe go on some stretches, but 14-13, 5-5 in their last 10, plus 7 run differential, right? But they battled back. They've had some comeback victories. They've also had some tough losses. And again, Pete Alonso, been okay. Lindor, been okay. Jeff McNeil, been okay, right? Kind of the story of the Mets the last 2 years. They just have a lot of horses in the middle of the order that you're expecting to contribute that have had big time years in the past, that this year and last year especially, but so far this year have just been right? They've been okay. If they're going to be better, they're going to need bigger contributions from those guys, and they're going to need the rotation get a little bit better statistically. But I don't know what you expect when you're rolling out Adrian Hauser, Jose Buto, Jose Quintana, right? I mean, it is what it is, right? Is what it is. Nationals in 4th, but they're 13-14, minus 10 run differential. The Nationals are, what's the word? Frisky, right? The Nationals they're not going to make the playoffs, but they'll play a team that's got playoff aspirations in September and sweep them. Like, that's what they have as their capability. They've had a lot of guys so far this year kind of pop off. They're hoping to build off that for the future. It's not going to be this year, but 13-14, I think is very respectable for the Nationals so far, a month into the season. And then last place is the Marlins, 6-23. They're a joke. NL Central, and by the way, I said that about the Marlins and like the Chicago White Sox, both just brutal teams with 6 wins a month into the season. Call them a joke, right? Seem to almost dismiss them a little bit, as you should, but it's not derogatory. It's not personal. I'm not saying it like, oh, every player in the Marlins and Skip Schumacher are a joke and deserve to, like, no, they just don't deserve to be talked about very much in a serious way. It's not personal, just what it is, right? Just a fact. These teams are rolled out completely uncompetitive and useless, rosters. Also dealt with some injury stuff, but what else do you expect? Anyways, you get it. That's not personal attack. It's just what it is. NL Central, Brewers and Cubs fighting for first. Brewers are 17-10. Cubs are 17-11, right? Half game separates those two squads. Cincinnati Reds are 15-13. Pirates are 14-15. Cardinals are 13-15. For the Cardinals, we'll go bottom to top here. Cardinals, minus 23 run differential. Cardinals, Paul Goldschmidt, wake up. Nolan Arenado, wake up, right? You go to the 2024 Cardinals player hitting stats leaders, okay? OPS sorted by. Best hitter on their team this year, by far, has been Wilson Contreras. 950 OPS. This guy's got 4 homers, 288 average. Guy's slugging like crazy. Mason Wynn has the second highest OPS on that team at 803. After that, amongst, I don't know what it is. I guess qualified. I don't know what qualified. Oh, to qualify, a player must have at least 3.1 plate appearances per team game played. So there you go. There's only 6 guys on this list, but it's got the 2 I just mentioned. Nolan Arenado, 683 OPS. Wake up. Paul Goldschmidt, 591 OPS. Wake up, right? It's kind of what we dealt with last year. And I don't mean to get too animated. I'm not a Cardinals fan. I'm a Padres fan. We're dealing with the same thing, the same exact thing, right? It's Nolan Arenado. It's Paul Goldschmidt. It's these teams that were known to have high-level contributors. And then as we get into the season and we're expecting them to be good, they're not. Who are the 3 teams that last year and immediately and apparently transferred right over this year? Everyone said, why aren't they very good? Why are they wildly underperforming? And when it comes down to it, when it comes down to brass tacks, the Cardinals, the Mets, and the Padres, 3 teams that should be better than they are, especially last year, and it's obviously carried over from this year. What is the common denominator? The bottom line is, when you have a team with playoff aspirations, you're going to have spots in your lineup that are better, spots in your lineup that are weaker, and you're going to have middle of the order, high paid $30 million plus a year guys that you need to be all-star caliber players. You're not asking for the Padres, Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts, Fernando Tatis, whoever, to all have 1,000 OPSs. You're not asking on the Mets, Lindor and Jeff McNeil to have 1,000 OPSs. You're not asking the Cardinals, Arenado and Goldschmidt to have 1,000 OPSs. What you are asking is career average or better. But you go through the Cardinals, Arenado, Goldschmidt, sub 700 OPS. Wake up. Francisco Lindor, Jeff McNeil, 666, 658 OPS. Wake up, guys. Wake up. Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, 703, 565 OPS. Wake up, right? Wake up. Everyone says, why weren't the Mets good last year? Why weren't the Padres good last year? I thought the Cardinals were a storied franchise that never finished under 500. Why are they sliding so bad? All 3 of those teams, stories last year. By the way, it's transferred over to this year. It's the same exact thing. Why? How? What's happening? Oh my God, I can't believe it. It's the stars in the lineup. Goldschmidt and Arenado have been worthless for 2 years with the Cardinals. Francisco Lindor and Jeff McNeil have been like worthless offensively for the Mets. Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts have been horrible for the Padres. When you have a team with playoff aspirations, high payroll last year with the Mets and Padres, Cardinals are a storied franchise. When you have a team that's looking to try to make a playoff run to get into the postseason, you need your aircraft carrier players to carry your team to a certain degree in the middle of the lineup. And when those guys don't do it, what's to say the rest of the guys are going to? When those guys, the big stars, Lindor, McNeil, Machado, Bogaerts, Arenado, and Goldschmidt, roll out every single day and seemingly take half-ass at bats, swing at garbage pitches, don't work the count, don't foul pitches off, get beat by velocity, the rest of the team is going to do the same thing or worse, right? Mets fans, if you want Brett Baty to be good, he's going to model whatever his effort level and production off of the guys making $30 million, these so-called leaders on those teams. And when Lindor has terrible at-bats and continues to underperform, Brett Baty doesn't feel any pressure because he's not getting forced. He's not getting shown by example. He doesn't have to be good because the guys that are supposed to be good aren't. And the Cardinals have all this young, controllable talent, all these guys they plan on including in their lineup in the future. Young guys they've had, Brendan Donovan and Mason Wynn and I'm missing a bunch. Nolan Gorman, you get it. The Cardinals have a bunch of these young guys that they're calling up. The Cardinals have been known historically to just call dudes up, bring them up, develop them pretty well in the minors, and then they get to the bigs and the dogs. Not anymore. Because that team, that organization, that group, those guys getting called up into had Adam Wainwright in the clubhouse, Yadier Molina in the clubhouse, Albert Pujols in the clubhouse, right? Dogs, guys that showed up every day as stars, played like stars, led by example, led by, clubhouse interaction, dugout interaction, all the different stuff that were true leadership. And that's why those guys came up and played well. And we'll get into that in a second. Let me wrap up the standings here before I go off on this last tangent. Talked about the NL Central. It's a good division. Brewers, Cubs, Reds, 15-13. Look out for the Reds, by the way. Best run differential in that division. Ellie De La Cruz is unbelievable. So keep an eye on them. Pirates have been decent, right? 14-15. They'll peter off. Cardinals have underperformed. We talked about it. Dodgers and NL West. Dodgers are 18-12. No one's shocked. The rest of that division's under 500. Giants are 14-15. Padres are 14-17, as we talked about them. Diamondbacks are 13-16, and the Rockies are 7-21. Rockies have trailed in every single game they've played this year with a -70 run differential. But that division's pretty underwhelming, right? NL West. And again, we'll go back to it, right? We'll go back to it in a second. I had this conversation with somebody else not too long ago, former, co-Padre fans of mine. You look back on some of the best teams in baseball history, the Red Sox of the mid to late 2000s into the 2010s, right? The Astros of the mid 2010s up until probably this year at the end of their run. You look at the Yankees of the late 90s in general. And then you take those teams, you compare them to the teams of today's day and age. You compare them to teams of last year. Mets, number 1 payroll. Padres, number 3 payroll. Cardinals, another team you could put into that mid 2000 to late 2010s run of relevancy to today's Cardinals. What's the difference between those teams, the 90s Yankees, the 2000s Red Sox, the 2010 Cardinals? What's the difference between those teams who consistently and repeatedly showed up and performed and got into the postseason versus the teams of this days and age, the Padres of last year and this year, the Mets of last year and this year, and the Cardinals of last year and this year? It's simple, it's basic, it's easy to understand when you take a step back and you realize how the level of play on the field can also affect everything else off the field in the intangibles. The Cardinals, the Mets, and the Padres of 2023 and transferred over immediately and apparently into 2024 have a team that was assembled and built with superstar, highly compensated players that they expect to contribute at a high level in the middle of their order. Guys that are supposed to drive the runs in, guys that are supposed to have the best stats, guys that are supposed to be representing those teams in the All-Star game. And plain and simple, those guys aren't doing it for these teams. Last year and this year, Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt were and continue to be really bad. Last year and this year, Xander Bogaerts and Manny Machado on the Padres were and continue to be really bad. Last year and this year, Francisco Lindor and Jeff McNeil in the New York Mets were and this year really, really bad. And when you've got those teams with those types of players and then young, controllable talent around them getting called up that fans are excited for, high-level prospects coming in, seeing guys like that not contributing, taking half-ass at-bats, having career worst seasons, terrible effort, bad body language, not leading by example, not leading with personality, not leading in any aspect, and simply going through the motions for a lot of time, not doing anything out of their way to dig themselves out of the rut. That's called lazy. That's called building a standard. And that's called what those teams in the early 2000s, those dynasty type teams, never, ever, ever had. The Red Sox of the 2000s, the Cardinals of the late 2000s into the 2010s, the Astros starting in 2015 and rolling through, the Yankees of the late 90s. Being mediocre on those teams in those organizations was unacceptable. And that was a standard that started from the top, trickled its way down into the clubhouse, and you never, ever, ever had a down year from David Ortiz on the Boston Red Sox. And if you had a down month or you had a stretch of games from him that wasn't great, he would find himself out of it. He would dig himself out of it. He'd still be the guy that's leading the clubhouse. He'd still be the guy in the dugout, joking around with guys, keeping things lighthearted. You'd get contributions elsewhere, but those guys in that clubhouse and on those rosters knew David Ortiz would find himself out of it. If at any point Albert Pujols in the mid to late 2010s for the St. Louis Cardinals ever struggled, which was rare, but if he ever struggled, those guys knew he'd be in there, man. He'd be the first guy in, last guy out. He'd be taking extra work. He'd be working in the cage. He'd be leading by example. Then he'd go into the clubhouse. He'd go in the dugout during the game. Even if he's struggling, not going to have bad body language, not going to look like he just found out his dog died, terrible look on his face, lazy effort, 3-pitch at bats where he just flails at breaking balls in the dirt. He'd go out and he'd find his way out of it. In the 2010 or in the 90s rather with the Yankees, losing wasn't just not okay. It was completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. And yeah, they had a high payroll. Yeah, they had a bunch of stars. But it was led by guys like Derek Jeter, guys like Paul O'Neill, guys like Bernie Williams, Jorge Posada, work ethic, battle, contributions, high level at bats, never giving up and never looking like they're just defeated. Go watch the St. Louis Cardinals. Go watch the New York Mets. Go watch the San Diego Padres last year and especially this year because it's carried over. Go watch those guys, those horses in the middle of the order. Horses, quote unquote. Machado and Bogarts for the Padres. Arenado and Goldschmidt for the Cardinals. Lindor and McNeil for the New York Mets. Go watch those games and just watch those guys take at bats. There's nothing there. There's nothing. There's nothing there with those at-bats, those teams. There's no hard contact. There's no working the count. There's no like the same feeling you get when you turn on the Dodgers at-bats. You turn on the Dodgers game, top of the first inning, Dodgers come up to hit. Mookie, Shohei, Freddie. I know it's a tough reference point, but those other guys on those teams that are underperforming, they are getting compensated. And at certain points in their career, were on the same level and same tier as Mookie, Shohei, and Freddie Freeman. Paul Goldschmidt's got an MVP. Arenado has always been a top-level guy. Manny Machado was second MVP 2 years ago. All these guys are getting $30+ million a year, just like Mookie, just like Freddie. I know Ohtani's getting monopoly money, but they're all, at one point or another, top-level guys. How come Mookie, Shohei, and Freddie are astronomically better in the Dodgers lineup than those other stars in the middle of the order of the underperforming teams? Why? Why are Shohei, Mookie? Watch their at-bats and watch Paul Goldschmidt's at-bats. Watch Mookie Betts take an AB. Watch Xander Bogaerts take an at-bat. Watch Freddie Freeman conduct his business in the box. Watch Francisco Lindor. It's night and day different. It is night and day. It is astronomically different. It's in the box with 11 to 12 seconds on the pitch clock. It's short, compact swings. It's covering velocity. 97 at the top of the zone, line drive in the gap. Backspin. It's breaking balls down and away, staying on it, taking it the other way. It's productive at bats. All Shohei Ohtani has done this year is hit the ball 1,000,000 miles an hour. These guys barely strike out if they do. And every time each one of those guys comes up, Mookie, Shohei, and Freddie, it's, uh-oh, what kind of damage is he going to do right now? And half the times these guys get out, they hit the ball in the screws. It's just right at the shortstop. It's right at the center fielder. And you watch Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, Francisco Lindor, Jeff McNeil. Watch them take at bats. it lacks any energy. There's no life. They get beat consistently by velocity. They swing at really uncompetitive pitches a lot of the time. Short at bats, first pitch swings, check swings, jammed, low exit velo, ground balls, launch angles down. It's really sad to watch. But for those of us wondering, the people that maybe don't tune in every single day, or the people that don't watch anybody but their team, wondering why, man, the Padres, they're not great again. They weren't great last year. They wildly underperformed. What's going on? Man, the Mets had the number 1 payroll last year. What's happening? Why do they continue to just be mediocre? The Cardinals, I thought the Cardinals were a storied franchise that never finished below 500. They had a horrible year last year, and they're in last place again this year. What's going on? It's the horses in the middle of the order for those teams. They simply have just packed it in. They're just coasting. They're seemingly okay with being mediocre. And I say that because we've all seen all those guys be good in the past. We've all seen it. We know what they can do. We know how good they can be. And as it turns out, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to say this is the reason, but all those guys also happen to be on big time buku buck monopoly guaranteed contracts. And when push comes to shove, whether Nolan Arenado or Paul Goldschmidt or Manny Machado or Xander Bogaerts or Jeff McNeil or Francisco Lindor, whether they really put up the numbers ever again, the checks are still clearing every Friday. I'm not saying that's the thing, but it certainly could be a reason to slightly de-incentivize these guys to go out and be truly, truly great. Because we've seen all those guys be stars, MVP caliber players, top of their game. That's what got them those contracts that they have now. And then you've got those horses in the middle of the order, the guys that consistently hit top 4, go out and be really mediocre and put together really ugly, boring, soft contact, strikeout at bats, swinging at bad pitches. Then you bring in the young guys around them. You bring in the complementary pieces who, yeah, you need those guys to contribute. They see the effort getting put in by the 3, 4, 5 guys. Like, well, what do I got to do? I got nothing to lose. If I go out and punch out on 3 pitches, so did Nolan Arenado. So did Manny. Who's going to get mad at me? And I'm not even supposed to be the guy. It's contagious. I'm telling you, it's contagious. The low levels of play from the horses on those teams, it is 100% contagious. And it carried over from last year. It's continued on in this year. And there's nobody on those teams that is going to pull them out of that rut. I referenced the 90s Yankees, the 2010 Red Sox, the 2010 middle St. Louis Cardinals. Look at each one of those teams, every single group of guys, every single roster of teams that had storied runs, that were perennial winners, constantly making playoff appearances, constantly playing in the championship series and the World Series. What did they have? The 90s Yankees had all the dudes you could reference, Bernie and Jeter, Jorge Posada and Pettit, all the guys with not only winning pedigree, but true leadership. Never let the team slide into a rut for one reason or another. Would lead by example and lead in the dugout and bring guys together and would create an atmosphere and a culture that, simply put, losing was not okay. And once the Red Sox started to build it up again, they took down the Yankees and ended up winning the World Series. They never looked back. Big Papi and Manny and Dustin Pedroia, man. And all these guys showed up and it was like, I'm going to outwork you. We're all talented. We all have great teams. I'm going to outdo you. And we're going to call up some other younger guys. We're going to call up some pieces, and they're going to see the work ethic we have as highly compensated, already won the World Series type guys, but we want to be great, and we want to show them that we want to be great so that they want to be great. And it's contagious, and it continues, and it builds. Next thing you know, the Red Sox are in the playoffs, every single year. 04 world champions, 07 world champions, 2013 world champions. Big Papi leading them, guys like that. The Cardinals get into the postseason a ton, win the World Series in 06, win it in 11. Who were their dudes? Albert Pujols, Adam Wainwright, Yadier Molina. Guys that showed up day in and day out, put in the work, led by example, not only on the field, but off the field, and showed everybody else around them and created a culture of winning that showed people losing's not okay. Underperforming, bad body language, terrible at bats, minimal effort, 80% at bat effort. That's not going to play. We don't do that around here. And today's day and age, today's teams, those groups, the Padres, the Mets, and the Cardinals, they don't have any of that. In fact, it's the opposite. It's the guys that everybody looks up to, the guys that are getting paid the most, the guys that are supposed to be the aircraft carriers carrying these teams through potentially some tough times to come up to bat when things are going bad, they're in a 4-game losing streak, and they hit a backspin line drive into the second deck. They don't have those guys. They have the players that could do it, but Nolan Arenado and Goldschmidt on the Cardinals, Bogarts and Machado on the Padres, Lindor and McNeil on the Mets. Those are supposed to be the guys. And simply put, they haven't been, and they continue to not be. Last year and this year. And it just snowballs. It doesn't slow down. And it's contagious. And it spreads around the team. Everyone starts to realize, well, I guess if those guys are going to put in an 80% effort and go up and watch 2 pitches down the middle and swing at a ball in the dirt, or get beat by a 91-mile-an-hour fastball in the inside corner, what's to say I got to do any better than that? And that's where we are. That's how we've gotten to this point. That's how the Cardinals are in last. The Mets start the season 0-5. The Padres are 3 games under 500. Just like last year. Nothing has changed. And until somebody comes in, right? And I don't know what it takes. I don't have all the answers. I know it's hard because these are grown men in Major League Baseball. I know. I get it, right? I know it's hard. You can't have one grown man go up to another grown man and go, hey man, play better. Because Manny Machado's going to say, dude, I'm making $35 million a year. Shut up. Lindor's going to say, dude, I got a 10-year contract. Who are you? Brett Beatty, right? Arenado, somebody comes up to Nolan Arenado and it's like, dude, stop taking half swings. Stop hitting balls into the ground. Work it at bat once. He's going to say, I have a 10-year contract. Shut your mouth. So I get it. I understand, right? I get it. But culturally speaking, the Cardinals, Mets, and Padres have lost any of that winning aspect, any of that winning culture. And it's really disappointing to see. And honestly, it sucks for, I think, the younger guys just as much as it sucks for their big time players not performing well. Because the younger guys, man, just come up into an organization where it's just lifeless. It's just flat. There's nothing there. It's boring. It's lame. It's led by a bunch of guys that are getting paid like crazy that at one point or another were MVP contenders that are just going through the motions. It's sad. And it sucks to see. You guys got guys like Mason Witt on the Cardinals, Jackson Merrill on the Padres, and Brett Beatty and Francisco Alvarez on the Mets coming into these teams and these organizations where it's like, hey, you're the young guy that's supposed to complement and develop underneath superstars making $30 million a year because they're going to lead by example. They're going to show you how it's done. They're going to develop winning culture. And it's just the opposite of that. It's been nothing but the opposite. And it's sad to see. It sucks for Mets fans. It sucks for Padres fans like myself. And it sucks for Cardinals fans. But until somebody steps up, somebody comes out, I don't know what it has to be. If it's a media interview, if it's on the field, right? You take exception to an inside pitch. I don't know what it's going to take. Maybe it's straight out of Moneyball. Maybe it is straight out of Moneyball when Jeremy Giambi's dancing on the table after the team loses their 4th game in a row and Billy Beane comes in, bashes the music player in the clubhouse, asks these guys, is losing fun, right? Is losing fun? And then fire the bat into the equipment room, let it rattle around a little bit, and tell these guys that's what losing's supposed to sound like. And anything at that is unacceptable. Somebody needs to freak out on these guys. Somebody needs to hold them a little bit more accountable. Because in the meantime, what these players are going to continue to do, Lindor, McNeil, Arenado, Goldschmidt, Machado, Bogarts, is they're going to just continue to go through the motions until somebody comes out and says, yo, wake up, right? Wake up. So that's where we are. that's my rant. That's my talk. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, guys. Episode 51. We Know Baseball. Check us out on social media. My handle on Twitter at Ryan Knows Ball, at We Know Ball Sports, Instagram and TikTok, and YouTube. Check us out on YouTube. We Know Ball. We Know Ball Sports, whatever it may be. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, really, really appreciate it. Here we are, guys. We're a month into the season. It's been a good year so far. Hopefully things continue. We didn't even get to talk about the jersey situation, which we will talk about later on. I mean, even just to summarize it, Major League Baseball said, okay, yeah, we'll do something about it. And they're going to roll out new jerseys, like the same ones, but improved in 2025. Bigger lettering, make sure the jerseys and pants match gray coloring, the discoloration from the sweat, that will all be addressed and fixed. So great. But Manfred's, you know how I feel about him. Either way, hopefully you guys enjoyed it, man. Episode 52. Check us out on social media, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Go! Batter up! We're taking the afternoon off. It's a beautiful day for a home run, but even a triple's okay. We're gonna cheer and boo